We are BRAP. We are live, and this is a Saturday BRAP rant, an impromptu BRAP rant of that. Actually, I planned this last night, believe it or not, with my good buddy OBM, One Bad Mother, who we have here joining us today on BRAP. OBM, happy Saturday morning to you, sir. How are you? Or afternoon, I should say.
Yeah, it just turned afternoon. Happy afternoon. Happy Saturday.
Yeah, happy Saturday. So we got a lot to talk about this BRAP rant. We have some major Xbox Series SX news coming from developers regarding an update that's really going to benefit the platform. We've all been seeing, the Digital Foundry things with third-party games, so we'll talk about a little bit about that. And then this Thursday, we saw the Perfect Dark trailer at the Game Awards. Microsoft officially revealed that, and there's some more stuff in the pipeline coming from Microsoft. So we're going to talk about that this afternoon as well. So on that note, let's go ahead and get the show started right now. All right. I love that intro. Big shout out to Graphic Guy to put that together for me. Does great work. Does really great work. And by the way, if you didn't get a chance to check out last night's Crossfire on Mooch's channel, I was a panel member of that show last night. Great show. We talked a lot about Cyberpunk 2077, which is, an interesting game. I don't mean that in a bad way. There's some interesting things about that game. And he had Jeff Grubb on as well from VentureBeat or GamesBeat, and Jeff's always a great guest. So big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Just reading it right now. What's up, Racer Juan? One Typical Latino. Appreciate you guys coming through. Everyone, please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit that bell notification so you know when we go live. But again, we have a great show in store. Got a lot to talk about. So, OBM, great to have you on, man.
Thanks, man.
Sometimes I swear you're a developer in secret. You're just not telling me.
I am not a developer.
Because when I talk to you behind the scenes, you tend to have a lot of insight into things per se, development related as relates to gaming. And I'm like, I think this guy works for Microsoft, but he's not telling me.
No, I'm not a plant. No, actually, thanks for having me on again. It's always fun to come here and just talk gaming. It's a great hobby. So good morning to you. And by the way, I was waiting for your woo because I always, this morning, thanks. I needed something to wake up this morning because I was up really late last night gaming like I was back in college or something on a summer. So I'm a little bit tired this morning, so you have to forgive me there. But no, I'm not a developer. I do work in a technical industry, so I do find that I enjoy talking to developers about what they do. There's some overlap and things that I can relate to in terms of how projects go, in terms of when tools change over, when you get new software or you get a new version of something and feels like it's worse than the old version. It's like, what do you mean this is an upgrade? This feels like a downgrade. So, I can relate to a lot of the things that the developer community goes through, but I have never developed a game myself. I think I am infatuated with it just because I've been a gamer for about 40 years and always been infatuated with technology. One of the reasons I'm in my field that I'm in. So when I get a chance and a developer or somebody who's close to that community is willing to share stuff, I'm always trying to learn and listen. It doesn't mean that obviously since I don't develop games, I don't want to make it appear like I'm an expert or anything I'm saying should be taken as like the final answer. I just kind of draw my fill in the gaps sometimes, or take a combination of things I hear from different people, and kind of draw my own conclusions, which sometimes are really close, and sometimes I learn along the way. But yeah, man, that's that in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. You're not a developer. I mean, none of us are. And I don't do a lot of. I do hear things behind the scenes from developers that I talk to, but I don't really talk about them a lot because I'm not a software developer. I'm not a game developer. I'm not an engineer. I don't want to misspeak. I maybe have a general understanding at a very basic level. So I never want to put things out there that might be misconstrued, right? I'm very careful about that. I don't want to, say anything that's may not necessarily be accurate, right? Because I'm not the SME, as they say, the subject matter expert, if you will.
Yeah.
Which is why I have people on like Optimus Code, and I've had developers on in the past, because they're the experts, right? They're the ones that have done this for a living or do this for a living, and that's why I have them talk about this stuff. And I wanted to have you on too because you've heard some interesting things, and just given your technical background, you do kind of have a little bit of probably more of an understanding of how things work. But at the very least, though, we do hear things that at a very elementary level that make sense to most people.
Right.
And some of those things we'll talk about as relates to some of the things that we've been seeing with the Xbox Series X, performing, the PlayStation 5, third-party games have been performing better on PS5 over Series X, and people are like, why is that happening? There's reasons for that. But real quick, I do want to get the super chat real quick from NV Dub with the $2 super chat. Woo! Thank you, sir, for the $2 super chat. Appreciate that. Yeah, so and we talked about this offline too, OBM, about Digital Foundry and some of the third party. I don't want to say. I guess the PlayStation 5 performing better, and I'll say this, OBM, and I think we talked about this too recently. At the end of the day, look, if there wasn't a Digital Foundry, we wouldn't be aware of any of this stuff, right?
Right.
Like, and I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I get Series X because it's the best place to play platforms." Well, you are third-party games. You wouldn't know that,
right? No, you bring up a really good point, and in fact, I don't want to cut you off here. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, man.
Okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, because I think before we even talk about any of this other stuff, I think what people. I don't know. This is probably more my agenda. Is I would like people to get past this, comparing blades of grass and and seeing if the shadows in one freeze frame is got lower resolution than the shadows in another, and even talking to devs. In fact, I've been in like Discords and stuff, and devs really don't like that talk, and the reason is they just feel like we're focused on the wrong things. I was told by somebody that, hey, if you're really good at your job, really, you could take something that has you could scale something down, and you're going to try to make it so that as a gamer's playing it, the average person's probably not going to notice that. Like it's their job. Like when somebody was telling me that they were very frustrated with the fact that, okay, you froze this frame in this one part of the game where you could find there's more blades of grass, and it's like, what, that's part of the magic of development is to kind of immerse you in the world, and apply it to things that really matter. And so, especially as we kind of move through diminishing returns from generation to generation, and there's just way more power consuming features that you can add. Like now you have the lighting, with ray tracing, and more detail, and resolution takes a lot. There's just a lot of areas where developers can say, okay, well, this platform here is just a little less powerful. I'm going to scale it down here. We'll take a little bit away from here or there, or take it off the edge. And it's like you're the average gamer is not really supposed to notice that. So they really, talking to devs, like most of them are not. I don't really think most of them even want to go down these holes. I mean, yeah, there might be some that are fans of one platform, just like anybody else, but most of them really don't want to engage in these freeze frame debates. It is kind of insignificant. And I'll speak for myself. I was gaming on Xbox One when I had a PS4 Pro because I liked the controller. And everybody has different priorities. And if it is that big of a priority for you, then yeah, you should take a look at it. But I do think that probably more than 95% of the people out there, it's just ammo for the stuff we talked about a few weeks ago, this tribal toxic, whatever. And as that pendulum swings, I don't think it matters that much today. And I don't think it's going to matter when it swings back again, however it swings. I don't really think it's going to matter for the most part on multi-plats, especially. I think what's really more interesting when talking to these devs is, hearing kind of where the tools are going. And there's been a lot of controversy around tools because they're transitioning. People should keep in mind, they're really transitioning throughout the industry, and you'll find out next year Unreal is going to have some major updates. Developers are really excited about. There's a lot of things going on with machine learning and just making things so that developers don't have to do low level optimization and things like that to get the most out of it. And that's the ideal. But as things go through transition, sometimes there's just like anything, anytime you go through a major change or you try to, anytime a change is significant, there's going to be some opportunities for take some step back in the process, but it's all to get them to a better spot. And I think overall people need to probably read what one developer said is people just hearing all the banter out there. He's yeah, people really are just talking about the wrong things right now. And he said that leading up to the launches of the consoles, and I think what's really exciting is how these tools are going to really make smaller teams, indie teams, really, really far more powerful than they've ever been. And it's just, you're going to see probably more diversity that combined with quality, high production value visuals and animations and, physics from developers you don't even know exist right now. And that's what's really exciting about next generation. So hopefully, we can get through this. Right now, I'm sure, in the Twitter wars, there's, a lot of Sony, a lot of PlayStation fanboys, handing out L's to Xbox fanboys, and then that might flip again in 6 months. But I really think the entire process is very, I don't know, it's really just focused on the wrong things. There's a lot of exciting stuff, and this is just so minimal in the scheme of it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And again, to your point, if you don't, and by the way, if you really want the best versions of multiplats, you got to go PC. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, definitely for Cyberpunk.
Oh yeah, definitely for Cyberpunk for sure.
I'm glad I held off on that Series X until that thing gets a lot better. That's those comparisons are man. It's did they just port this down to the Switch? What the hell is that going on?
I mean, you made a wise decision there, OBM, because let me tell you something. There hasn't been any game that I've played since I've had my PC that has made my PC struggle, and where I had to tweak settings. I had to go in and tweak settings to get this game to run some ray tracing and get anywhere from 55 to 65 frames per second, right? And it still looks good. I mean, most of the settings are setting on high, but there's some things there like ray tracing's at medium. There's some settings though that I had to either turn off, like film grain, some other ones that I set to low to increase frame rate. But yeah, the game is super taxing, and it's taxing when you, in the sense that there's a lot going on in the city, right? It feels very alive. To me, it's probably like the game that if you really want the best, if you really want to experience this game the way the developer intended to, it's one of those games that really is a selling point to why you might need to buy a 30 series RTX card.
Yeah. Hopefully next year for those of us that prefer to game on the console, and I don't have a PC rig in your ballpark, but hopefully for those of us when they actually make the next gen versions, yeah, that stuff is at least close enough, like to what we're talking about, that we're getting into to areas where we can just enjoy it. That's probably the best example of of power making a big difference. But now you're talking about going from, I don't know what you have on your PC, but compared to
20, I got a 2070
Okay.
GPU, and I have, like, my computer's still good. I mean, it's still a good computer. I mean, I have a 2070 GPU. I have N.2 SSD. I have the what do I have? I have the Samsung Evo. I forget which one I have.
Yeah.
And then I have a Ryzen 2700X. Not a bad CPU. So I mean, and that game, I mean, my GPU is running 100%. CPU is about 50 running that game. So, but it's the ray tracing, man. The ray tracing is what bogs the performance down. And so I don't think, like, we talked about this offline, OBM, and I think you agree with me. Like, we're not going to see ray tracing, I think, the way people think we're going to see ray tracing with these new consoles.
No, I asked a developer about that, and actually he said, yeah, it's going to be, you're probably not going to see full path ray tracing in the next 2 generations, because people don't understand how demanding that is. And then also, like, how wide of a spectrum you can scale that. So there's just a huge variance in terms of applying it. So when people just say, hey, this thing has ray tracing, it just means it has some ray tracing. It doesn't mean that it has, it doesn't mean that it's fully ray tracing. You're not going to see anything fully ray traced. Even on the highest end PCs, I would argue, you're probably not going to see, you might see the full implementation of what the developers intended for now, but you're not going to see like full path ray tracing, which is like the real thing. That's the where everything is where everything is bouncing off everything. You're going to probably see strategic implementation, like you're going to see reflections here or there, where it kind of makes sense, where it gives. And again, this goes back to what I said earlier, from a developer standpoint, they're going to look at stuff, and in some games, ray tracing may not make any sense just based on the art style, and like, hey, the expense is really not giving the person viewing it that much benefit for the expense. I think in Cyberpunk it's a little different. You got a lot of those environments really, I think, do pop with ray tracing, and I think that make a difference. But you'll see, like, from game to game, one told me, like, the stuff that's coming in Unreal next year is not like ray tracing, but it's a much more advanced form of lighting that doesn't take nearly the same resources. So he's really excited about that. Like, I think he's more interested in implementing that kind of stuff. So yeah, to your point, there's just there's so many things that can scale such a wide spectrum at this point in time. We're getting to that point where you're going to get incremental benefits in a lot of games for a lot of power use. And so when you think about it that way, then even a 30% gap or and I'm obviously just throwing numbers out here, even if you had a 50% gap, you could probably, a good developer could probably make that not noticeable to the average person by just, instead of maybe using this much ray tracing, I'll use a little bit less, and in certain spots. So there's just a wide range of things right now, and then tricks to kind of compensate for full use of resolution and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I'm rambling. I'll let you take it back over.
Yeah, no, that's great insight, and I certainly appreciate that, OBM. It's funny, as you were speaking, One Bad Mother, I was thinking to myself, man, we've come full circle. Like, who would have thought 20 years ago we're on Xbox Live playing, Halo 2 or Unreal Championship, that would be podcasting, right?
With a bunch of kids.
Exactly, right? Yeah, exactly.
you with twice as much as me.
I mean, yeah. When I met you on Xbox Live, I was in my 20s still. I mean, that's Jesus, man. That's crazy.
you're modding forums, and I was causing trouble on them. Yeah. I mean, come a long way, man. Now I've got a little bit old and tired, and don't have the energy for that shit.
Yeah, I was console warring for Xbox on the GameSpot forums. I was a moderator for the Xbox forum. Oh my goodness. Yeah, those are
yeah, I can vouch for you, Enrique. You were a good soldier.
It's funny, but So it's I remember, man, like I used to console war and I used to buy stuff on the OG Xbox. Like I remember I bought the game Reckless. I think it was called Reckless.
Yep, I remember that one.
Yeah, and it was actually visually like stunning looking game. Like it was a great looking game at the time. But it was like one of those games where like I remember I used to fight with like console war with like PlayStation fans. Oh, we got Grand Theft Auto. You guys don't have that. I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? We're gonna get Reckless and it's gonna be awesome, right? Look at the visuals. That Reckless looks amazing, right? And I remember buying it and playing it, and I kept playing it. I'm like, I have to like this game because this is how console warriors think, because I used to be a console warrior.
Yeah.
You start doing things and just convincing yourself that it's good because you don't want to admit that it's not, because you don't want to eat crow. You don't want to you want to carry the war, you don't want to admit to the other side that the game's doo-doo. You know what I mean? Like,
we see that with a lot of things in today's society, don't we? But yeah.
We do. Yeah. Like, we're not going to get into that. But
we won't get into that. But yeah, no, actually, that's funny you're bringing that up. I think I gave Reckless. I bought it, and I think I gave it 2 hours, and I took it back and traded it in.
I mean, you remember Brute Force? I was like, oh yeah, look at that CGI trailer, man. Xbox is gonna kill Sony with this game, and then Brute Force came out and it was doo doo. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Remember there was on the cover of OXM. It was it said Halo Killer ?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That was one of my most typed games, and then I think I got through 2 levels of that one and traded that in. I never even tried it online.
Yeah,
so,
it's funny.
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
It's funny with the OG Xbox, like the games that I wasn't like console warring for or about prior to release are the ones that were actually good. Like like when Atoji came out, Atoji was like, whoa, that From Software game, by the way. That game was like hard and it was so good. Like it was getting great reviews. Came out of nowhere, right? So
yeah, I didn't play that one. I think I was getting focused on the next generation, and that was back before back. Yeah, I actually didn't. I mentioned to you this offline. I didn't even discover From Software until like 3 years ago, and now Dark Souls is one of my top 5 games of all time. So yeah, it's I didn't know, and I really hope they bring that to backwards compatibility somehow. I don't know who has the rights to that, but yeah, they did have some sleepers on that. I think there was some games that just came out of nowhere that still hold up today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Real quick, everyone in the live chat, we have about 64 people watching. Please hit that like button. Hit the like button. And if you wouldn't mind retweeting out the link to today's show on the Twitters, would definitely appreciate it. And I do want to talk about Perfect Dark as we talk about OG Xbox and older exclusives. And I'm going to go down memory lane here, OBM, because you remember when Microsoft purchased Rare Studios. I mean, that was like huge, right? Huge.
Yeah, we won.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's funny you mentioned that. Like, that's exactly what I think I said. It probably is when I was waving the green flag in console. I was like, "Yeah, we won. We got Rare."
Yeah, Perfect Dark, and then we played Perfect Dark Zero.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep going, man. Keep going. Sorry, I keep jumping in there and taking us off track.
Hold on a sec here, man. Hold on, just give me a sec here, OBM. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, you mean no, not that flag, Cryptopsy. I'm not going to repeat what Cryptopsy did, but not that flag. So yeah, so when Microsoft bought Rare, I mean that was obviously a big deal. And now we have the the initiative, which maybe is like the worst kept secret in the industry, by the way, OBM. Yep. Like we all knew that we're going to work on Perfect Dark. Like we knew that was coming. And apparently I don't know if you've heard this too, but there might be a second game they're working on. Have you heard that?
I've heard rumors of that. I haven't heard anything like that I feel really confident. I think the interesting thing, and I don't know if these rumors just come from people because sometimes I think there's a lot of rumors are a combination of things where people hear stuff and then they speculate based on information that's public, like the fact that this Perfect Dark was supposed to be third person, and I think they were just looking at everybody that were hiring and going, well, of course it's going to be third person with considering every single high level person on that team has only worked on third person games. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the creative talent they've been hiring, it feels like there's almost too many cooks in the kitchen for one single game in a way from a creative standpoint.
That's what I was thinking.
So, yeah, so it makes sense. And yeah, there's been rumors, and again, I'm not putting my name behind this, but there's been rumors that like they're working with another studio to kind of help them. Like another studio has been kind of working with them to kind of build out something. So I guess we'll wait and see. We'll see what happens at E3. I wouldn't be completely shocked. I think Microsoft is experimenting with different. Not only are they trying to evolve some of the tools, I think they're looking at a lot of processes and pipelines and trying to figure out different ways, like, hey, is there more efficient ways to kind of make games? There's got to be something drawing all those high level devs to that team. Like there's something different, and I don't know what it is. So that could be a thing. Like maybe that's just like, hey, this is an opportunity for you to be a creative person, and then we'll outsource all the actual, we'll find all the worker bees from some other studio to kind of, and you'll just lead them or something. I don't know. That's just some theories. So that could be a thing, but I don't. Again, I haven't heard anything concrete from anybody credible at this point for a fact that they're working on a second game. But I do think it's just looking at it logically, who they have on paper, I could see it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, because you're right. There's a lot of cooks in that kitchen. I mean, they've made some pretty high profile hires there. In that particular. So I do. I've been hearing that there's another game that's cooking. I don't know what that game is, but I'm going to lead on the side of I think that's probably happening. Again, I don't know for sure, but I do think that's probably going to happen. But at least with the Perfect Dark announcement, like, yeah, worst kept secret in the industry, but still, I'm still excited. Like, I was happy to see this announcement, and the trailer they showed I thought looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, I'm actually I was pretty excited myself after, not so much with the CGI trailer, but just understanding what it was or what they're aiming for, right? Because I trust the talent. We didn't really know what the direction was. And I think maybe going back to your other point about the two different games, maybe that's why there was such a mishmash of what people thought it was going to be. Some were saying it was Perfect Dark. Some were saying, well, no, it's going to be in that universe, or it's going to be something completely different. Some were saying it was third person, and it's going to be episodic. So who knows? Maybe that episodic thing is that other project. But I think, yeah, from what I saw, first of all, I think it's great that they're allowing them to kind of pick their direction, especially with that creative talent. You would think in the past there was like a story from somebody who actually worked at Rare, or he pitched Perfect Dark like to reboot it, basically make it more adult, and Microsoft basically told them, no, we already got a sci-fi shooter, so we can't do this. So I think it's kind of goes again along those lines of getting, Microsoft finally just saying, you know what, we've tried from an executive level to micromanage this and fit everything into, where we strategically thought these things could fit into. And now they're just kind of handing it over. And it's like Microsoft now has 4 first-person shooters, high level, with Doom and Wolfenstein. And they're still letting them do another first person, which I think is a good thing. I mean, because honestly, just let whatever the developers, whatever direction they want to go in, let them. It sounds like it's going to be a full-fledged AAA game, not an episodic thing. It sounds like it's going to be ambitious. That's what we all were hoping for. So even though it was like the worst kept secret, I think this just helped alleviate a lot of the anxiety around it. It's like, hey, are they really going to go for something that's not that ambitious, that almost doesn't make sense with that team? So it sounds like they are. I did like the art that they showed it, even though it was CGI. I did like the art, and I'm glad that the developers were able to speak on it after the fact. And I think that's the gap that was missing with the July show, where they just ran a bunch of CGI and you're like, okay, you just announced it, but you didn't really give me anything. And at least here they added some context to what they showed. And I think that made that a lot better. So I hope that's kind of how they handle that stuff going forward. It's like, if you're going to show a CGI, it's not going to be in game. And we have to understand that, obviously, if the game's 2 to 3 years away, you're not going to get an in-game thing. At least give us some context. And that was really good. And yeah, I was really hyped once I was able to kind of connect those two things together.
Yeah. And I was happy that they showed us, some like a vertical slice, as opposed to just saying, putting up the title "Perfect Dark" coming soon, right? That to me would have been a little bit disappointing. But I have heard too that perhaps early 2021. Again, this is rumors. I'm not saying this is going to happen. Just what I've heard, that we could be seeing some more announcements coming out for Microsoft or Xbox Studios. One of them being Compulsion's new game, which is a third person perspective action game. And there could be some other ones, but the reason why I wanted to talk about this too, OBM, because look, for all the slack that I give Microsoft, and I think it's well deserved, because look, they just haven't been cranking out quality content from a first party perspective. They haven't been doing that well. I think that's and if you want to argue that point with me, have at it, but you'll just get the hand, because look, you can't argue facts. Part of my issue with the Series X is that what does it have? It's a valid criticism, because the fact of the matter is there's no exclusive for it. There's no new first party. There's nothing.
Well, it's hard to argue with people on that point. Yeah, to your point, I agree with you. It's really, in terms of, if we're looking at over the last year, they had a lot of nice, smaller games come out that I enjoyed. But yeah, to your point, what you expect from a first party is you want them to innovate, to really push the bespoke features in their hardware. And that, again, when we go back to that hardware discussion, I think that's where it gets interesting. Is Microsoft first party leveraging that in the future, because that's really where you're going to see it, not the multi-plats. But to your point, yeah, they didn't invest for almost 4 years, and the stories are pretty public now. There was always behind the scene rumors for a long time that Microsoft didn't believe in gaming. They wanted to spin it off. That they weren't sure what their place was. And, if you go back to the entire Microsoft story, the Xbox was only started because they thought that Sony was a threat to to Windows, really, indirectly. They thought, and it was kind of to block them in the living room, because that's where they thought Windows was going to go. And then, over the course of the 360 generation, they were off to a really good start because of just really the things that were put into motion by the previous executive team that was given autonomy. They were just given a check and autonomy to go in there and make things happen. Bill Gates and all those executives knew they didn't understand gaming, so they hired gaming people and they made gaming decisions. And the 360 got off. The first half of that generation was hot because of they let people that understood the industry, have that autonomy. But as it moved under the Windows division, and then eventually, we saw the Windows Windows gaming fail, and then I think Microsoft over time kind of realized, okay, that the whole reason we're in this, that was maybe a fake, that wasn't really a real threat, and this is just such a tiny piece of what we're doing. It didn't really, it wasn't adding much to the bottom line either way. So it was just one of those things where a lot of investors really didn't believe in it, didn't understand why they were in it. That Satya Nadella came out and admitted it. And so I think Microsoft was in a holding pattern for most of this generation. And it takes, game development takes 3 to 5 years. And in fact, I would argue now AAA development is taking longer than 3 years. So, that's kind of been sliding upwards over the last few years. And so whatever you're going to have releasing in early 2020 was probably in the pipeline in 2016, back when, Microsoft was sitting there and going, well, we don't even know if we want to do this anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I mean, you're absolutely right. And a lot of people will bring that up, like, oh, well, games take a long time to develop, but OBM. I'm tired of waiting, man.
And that's fair. It's consumers. I don't think anybody needs to. I'm not going to tell anybody to wait. I'm fortunately for me, the Game Pass thing for me probably has a lot more benefit than it does for you. I know we're a little bit different in terms of how we game, and so that's really not only holding me over. I got like a backlog of things I just like to just keep sampling and trying, and that's just kind of how I am. I like to see new different things that I don't have to take any risks on. So that's holding me over until they have the exclusives. But for those people that it doesn't, like, that doesn't really move the needle for them, the Game Pass thing, they just like to buy. They play Call of Duty, they play NBA 2K, and then they buy the big exclusives and the big AAA stuff. I can see why this platform just doesn't excite them for today. I do think it's going to change, but I'm not going to tell people to wait on it. I can say that I'm pretty confident that they have more things in development today than they've ever had, but they need by a long shot. It's not even close, but and they need to give those things time. One of their opportunities in the past has been that they try to rush things, and they would things that really were taken out of the oven way too early that had a lot more potential. So they really cannot. Once if they do everything the right way, once they finally get over that line and that transition becomes clear, they're going to be in a really, really good spot. And that might be like late 2021. It might be early, somewhere in 2022 before that becomes kind of apparent. But they can't rush things before then to kind of say we need something for 2020, because what that's going to do is just keep them in this cycle of mediocrity if you're just continuously rushing things. So you just have to bite the bullet. They made this bed, and they'll have to deal with the narrative for a year. But by the time we get to the next fall, hopefully I actually think I liked what I heard from the Halo update, and hopefully that's looking great. And then we can see a lot of things kind of ready to come in behind it.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, look, and the great thing about the reveal Perfect Dark is that I think it's showing obviously the commitment to gaming, that they're, obviously they know, like, hey, we got to put out, good content in order to compete, right? I don't want them to. My thing is, I don't want them to rest on Game Pass. Like, I don't want them to think because we have Game Pass and this thing offers value, we're good. Because Game Pass is only good as the content that comes to it, right?
Well, they know that, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, yeah, and you're right. They do that. We obviously they know that. We see it, with the reveal of Perfect Dark, and then maybe giving developers a little more autonomy, which if you talk to my man Slow-Mo Backslap, there could be some good things or bad things about that with Microsoft.
I hear that. I've heard that. I've heard Slow-Mo talk about that. Yeah, my whole thing there is, yes, if you give people autonomy, it's the same thing. Like, I manage, and if you give people autonomy, not everybody handles it the same, right? Some people are going to be worse with that autonomy. Some people need to be micromanaged. They want to be. They want you to put them on a product. They want you to say, hey, you're just doing Halo forever. That's what you're going to do. Tell me what to do. Okay, I'm happy kind of completing what it is you give me orders to do. However, I would say that the best of the best need the breathing room. And you're never going to discover the best of the best without stepping back and letting them there's no way they're going to ever reach their potential if you're hovering over them and sitting on them and redirecting them here and there. You got to trust them. And obviously you got to, stay clear with the visions and make sure things aren't, getting way off track, or, you're getting into this, there's obviously going to be still some management there, but you have to do that with, I think if you're going to want to find things that are great, you have to let people, great people be great. There's some things that could fall down. And I think we saw that with 343, right? They gave them the autonomy, didn't really, that maybe they didn't really earn as much as some of the other studios, and they didn't work out. But, but in the big picture, I always look at things from like the highest level that I think I'm very confident that especially with the people they brought in, some of the studios that brought in, that strategy is going to pay dividends, like big picture. It's going to have opportunities. There's going to be some mistakes made along the way, and there's some studios that are they're probably going to need to step in and at some points, and hey, maybe we need to change some things or try to help get you back on course. But I'd rather this than we've heard stuff, right? Like we heard people from Rare who left, and from other, we've heard people who've left Microsoft and said, you know what, every time they change over an executive, our game changed. Somebody would say this is okay, and then the next executive would come in and be like, no, we're going to go this direction now, and that's just horrible for creative people. So I'll take this all day over that, and I get it. They're not going to be like Sony has a system, but they run they have their own niche. I think Microsoft's still looking to kind of create a different one, and they need to let people, I think, come to the forefront right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, part of the reason, again, why I wanted to talk about Perfect Dark, because look, as critical as I've been of Microsoft, look, obviously we don't know the final product yet. We haven't played these games. That's going to be the ultimate benchmark, if you will. But at least that there's a silver lining maybe with them, I don't think we can deny that. I know some people say, hey, you got to wait 4 more years. I'm one of them. but I think at the end of the day, though, they're doing some things that are, I think, potentially exciting for gamers. If they nail this,
mm-hmm.
and we're getting like great content on Game Pass, I mean, that's just going to be a big boon for them, I think, in my opinion, at least. I don't know how that, some people look at it from the lens of, well, what's that going to mean for them competing with Sony? I don't know. I don't know what that's going to mean or look like. What I do know is that if they put out great content and they drop it on Game Pass, it's a win-win for gamers.
Yeah. They understand they need the Stranger Things, all that. Satya Nadella, actually, his mentor before he took over at Microsoft was Hastings, who's one of the co-founders of Netflix. Which was so in 2018 when they announced they're going to start putting all their first-party stuff day and date in there, you could already kind of see that direction. So they understand. Netflix invested $17 billion this year. From what I've heard from developers, like people don't even really understand how much Microsoft's hiring right now. Like they're like sucking up developers. They're like kicking the tires on everybody and hiring as many proven people as they can right now. It does feel like the vault's open. So they you might be able to get 20 million people into a Game Pass with just having good content, good indies, but you're not going to get 100 million or you're not going to hit those gigantic numbers and get people from other countries to buy in without having a diverse, super high quality level of content. There's just no way you can do that. So you can tell by their investments that they are looking at this is not like something where they're kind of incrementally trying to, they have their vision, and that's just how Nadella works. So, right now there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. It's just a matter of, waiting for it to cook. And, like you were saying before, I understand people's kind of, their disposition towards it. Like we were talking offline, and it's like it's almost like you're in a relationship and you keep telling the lady, oh yeah I'll change, I'll get counseling, and then you don't. And then, then finally one day it hits you. It's like, you know what, I'm going to do this right, and you sign up for counseling, and you go buy her roses, and you go home, and then she's got a note on the door. It's like one of those stories. And I think where people are at, it's just like it's not even a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. And it's like, you know what? When I see your face, it just brings back, all I think of is broken promises. So I don't really care what you have to say right now. And so that's just the thing they're going to have to deal with for, I think probably at least another year. But, like I said, I'm pretty confident, just kind of knowing what I know, that stuff's people are going to, when the results come, when people come back and they see, oh yeah, this thing got a makeover. It's going to be like that girl that comes back to Jenny Jones with the boob job and the makeover.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
When they see that, they're gonna be like, "Oh, okay, maybe I'll check this out." Sorry about that. That was probably inappropriate this time of the morning on the Saturday.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
I don't know why I just hit my head, but yeah, no, it's like so that happened. But yeah, in the meantime, like for where you're at mentally, or however you think about it, or where anybody else is, nobody should tell people you don't have a right to be uninspired at this moment. This is just they made this bet back in 2016, 2017, and they just got to ride it out.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. They're gonna have to ride this out, and again, based on what I saw with Perfect Dark, I think it could potentially be heading in the right direction. Again, obviously, we don't know how these games are going to turn out, because they're not out yet, so we'll see.
Yep.
So that being said, OBM, you and I have been hearing things from developers as relates to Xbox tools, things like that, right?
Yep.
And in my conversation with you the other day, you really brought out some interesting things that I wanted to talk about that you've heard that as relates to the Xbox, that obviously, things aren't, developers don't have access to certain things on the platform just yet, or I think they do now, I think was what you were saying. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was very interesting, and it just again solidified what we know with why we're seeing games on a third party games maybe perform better on PlayStation 5.
I'll kind of address just some of the things like from a few different places, from a dev, from somebody else who's talked to dev, and some of the stuff's I think a lot of it's kind of in general been out there. And again, I want to, before I kind of jump into this, I know people are going to be probably listening to this and be ready for some from System Wars stuff. This has nothing to do with that. I don't really care about that. Just talking about though the actual platform itself, kind of where that's going. Microsoft did change over from their XDK to GDK. I think we all know this, and part of the reason is to streamline the development. Because they are now, every one of their first parties deal is developing across PC, different SKUs, the Series S, the Series X. So that adds a lot of extra work. And so what they're trying to do is obviously evolve their tools, which probably didn't get the just like their first party studios, their tools were kind of getting passed up industry wide as well. So they've kind of gone back to this, and I heard Somet say, well, why they change it? That's the reason why. It's really that kind of, on one of your shows, like why are they going through this and creating this headache at this point in the generation? But they needed to really go through this transition. Obviously, they don't need the the problems, but that's just something that happens. So that's why they're updating these. And in the June GDK that came out, there was a lot of issues with it. There's still features turned off today. Recently, they updated it, and developers for the first time got low level access. There's still there's still things that are turned off, and it's not in its like best form, but it is a lot better already. And from what I heard from people within the industry is that even once you get access to the new tool set, it's not something that's like overnight. Like generally, if you move from one version to another, it's not that it's supposed to break, but it can. A lot of times it's not trivial to do an update. I can even speak in my own industry. When I get an update, just a simple update of software, a lot of times we get a bunch of unexpected glitches and problems and stuff like that. So if I'm in the middle of a project, I'm going to be like, hold off. Don't update right now. I need to get this project completed. I don't need you to, hand me over a bunch of headaches or things I got to wait on fixing. So you're going to want to work with what you have, even if on paper it's supposed to be a lesser version, because again, going through that process, there is usually when you change things over, you have that opportunity for bugs and things like that. And every single company usually has a they have a process for that. When they're going to update something, they're going to go through a bunch of testing and all this before they actually roll it over. So even though the new GDK came out recently, a lot of devs are still using the old stuff, and they needed to get these games out for launch. And so it's not so much that they had issues like, I think, porting the code over. It's just the code was coming over not well optimized. There was some bugs, they didn't have the ability to kind of work around that with like some low level optimization, which is something I was told by dev. It's like, we don't really want to do low level optimization anyways. Ideally your tools are good enough that they get the most out of the hardware without having to kind of dig in at that level. But it's just, they are where they are. They had the worst of both worlds. They didn't have that workaround, and they also had, tools that weren't, well optimized. There's some features that are still turned off that they'll be waiting on. But the good news is, from what I heard, is it is better already. And by the second half of 2001, you'll probably see like a 50% increase in terms of like their rasterization and stuff like that. So there's good, and that's just obviously, again, to address anybody who's like trying to go into the system wars things. That's not saying 50% further than Sony. I'm sure Sony's tools are going to prove as well. It's just Microsoft's have more getting in the way of them pulling the most out of it. But yeah, so I would start expecting probably in the spring, you'll start to see some good improvements, even maybe even coming up in the next few months, but it's probably going to be the end of the year where you're going to really start to see that, those improvements. And that's not even including things like, the machine learning. And there's some RDNA2 stuff that I didn't get nobody broken down the specifics on that for me on that, but there's some stuff that's still turned off today. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, and those are similar things that I've heard too. And these are going to be things. I think you mentioned that we probably will see the benefits of these things. I'd say early 2021, but it could be like early to mid 2021, where we'll see kind of where we probably won't see the. I don't want to say disparity, because I don't really think it's that big of a disparity between the two consoles, but we'll probably won't see as many instances per se of, maybe the PlayStation 5 outperforming the Series X with like third-party stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, and again, there's a lot, and I know Code's talked about it. You've had other people talk about it. There's a lot of factors that go into multi-plats. It's not just the hardware. It is a tool, but it's not even just the tools either. It could be prioritization. It could, every dev will tell you it's tools, it's talent, tools, and time. And, if you are a big AAA publisher and you have, maybe most of your base is on the PlayStation, you put your A team on that, you put your better talent on that, you might put more time into optimizing that. So there's even, the pros outperform the One X in some instances, and on paper there's no good explanation for that. But in real life, it's just going to be a matter of where they're going to prioritize, and if it continues to be easier, a lot of it's going to depend too on how good does Microsoft's tools get over over the course of the next year, 2 years. If they get really, really, really good, and maybe devs start on the PC side, and then they're like, what, the tools are so good, we'll kind of focus on the DirectX versions first. That could benefit them. So that might even benefit them more than the actual hardware. So there's a lot of different things. So people need to keep that in mind. So just because, yes, the results will get a lot better over the next. We'll start seeing results probably in the spring or so, and then towards the end of the year, you'll start seeing them getting a lot better. But I don't want to focus that all on the console wars, because there's a lot of other factors that continue to come into play. I expect that there will continue to be versions on the PlayStation that still work better, just because there's a lot of other factors. But at the end of the day, from what Dev said, is that if you're getting the most out of everything, the Series X should win most of the time. But again, that's just in theory. On paper, real life is always a different situation, as I kind of learned in my own industry.
Yeah, and that's when it comes down to like development talent, tools, resources, things like that. I mean, I think there's very few games last generation that really, maybe one game in particular, that really took advantage of the One X, which was Red Dead Redemption 2. But most third party games, I mean, unless you're watching Digital Foundry, you're not really going to tell the difference.
No, we're not. And what's going to be interesting is really to kind of see how the first parties really leverage.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. Like, oh, go ahead, man. Yeah, I'm talking so much on your show.
No, that's fine. No, I was just saying, I mean, that's when we talk about, people really want to see what these consoles could do. That's why I always say first party so important, because their first party is going to really show what these consoles are capable of. I mean, we're seeing that right now with really the PlayStation 5 right now with Sony.
Yep.
I'm playing Demon Souls, and it's funny. Like I played Demon Souls, and I went back to play like Destiny. I'm like, ugh, Destiny. Like it just looks. It just doesn't look just looks like old.
Well, it is funny because I brought this up before. This is probably a couple of years ago. I brought it up in a forum. I'm like, man, Microsoft needs to really focus on their own engine. Look at what Sony's doing with Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War and all this stuff like that. And somebody said, you know what? It's not just the engines. Like they're saying, like the Unreal Engine was more than capable even at that time. They were saying, it's a prioritization. It's like, what are you prioritizing in terms of your results? How much money and time and investment are you going to put into that stuff? So Sony still prioritizes animations and graphics because that's what they really want to immerse you into these worlds and characters. I expect, regardless of let's just go to, for sake of argument, say that everything on paper ends up being what we expected it to be in terms of the hardware. I still expect their first party, when we get done with this generation, to look back and say, hey, you know what, the best looking and best animating games are largely still Sony first party studios, because that's what they really focus on. It's interesting when I'm like, you kind of look at a lot of the people that Microsoft is hiring, and a lot of what they're talking about is really been more on the side of like machine learning, AI, physics, like a lot of in a lot of the games they're working on are sandboxy, kind of dynamic, like a lot of opportunity for that. And so I think that's where they'll kind of leverage their advantages with their machine learning efficiencies and the wider GPU and stuff. And again, this is like taking a lot of stuff and drawing my own conclusions. So I'm not betting my life on it. I'm not playing that Porte game. But that I expect that's going to be kind of the interesting things to start seeing. Are these worlds in Microsoft's first party? Are they going to be dynamic? Are they going to really innovate in AI and physics and stuff? So they really have, which I think is a good thing. Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, really all have like their. Microsoft's looking for their own, going to establish their own niche. Everybody's going to have their own thing. And if you like, what Sony puts out today, there's nothing that's going to change that over the course of this generation. They're going to leverage, they're going to have their own priorities. I still think Sony's going to have super pretty games, maybe some of the prettiest ones that come out this entire generation regardless. And, but Microsoft's got some other interesting things in the works too. So I'm hoping, there's a lot less things that are, a lot of new things. So you never know how new things are going to turn out. You don't know if they end up turning out like the Crackdown multiplayer, or if they end up hitting. But they got enough investment in talent right now compared to before that can make some things happen. So that'd be the most fun, I think, is looking at the first party stuff.
Yeah, let me ask you. So, have you heard anything else about PlayStation 5? The one thing that consistent thing I keep hearing about PS5's tooling's better, or tooling's, I should say better. Tooling is good for the most part. And the machine's like super efficient, like it's very easy to develop for, much like the PlayStation 4 was easy to develop for. Same thing with PS5. Have you heard anything else about PS5?
Not a ton. I mean, just that it's more, the environment's a lot more similar to what it was before. And so anytime, I'll relate this to my own job, and this is just kind of how I correlate it. Anytime you are working with stuff that's familiar, you get really, really good with things over time, right? And so when there's not a lot of change, you get a lot of benefits without a lot of the drawbacks of the transition. I think in Sony's case, a lot of the stuff's just more automatic. Like even the SSD, like I've heard it's more work, or it's kind of a learning experience how to manage the velocity stuff and the memory setup, because Microsoft's memory setup's different than Sony's, which is way more straightforward, right? Like in the SSD, you don't have to really work that hard to kind of leverage. It's kind of its brute force approach. So yeah, I think it's just I don't know what that means long term, but I just putting it in my own world, I can say, if I'm really good here and now you're just giving me that, but it's better, I should be able to just be better without really any step backs. Where again, it's just there's just a lot more moving parts and things for people to kind of step back and have to learn and work through on the Microsoft side. So yeah, no, I've heard that. I haven't talked to any. I haven't really asked, I guess is what I should say, is, because I'm more Xbox leaning, I always kind of inquire. And I think there's just more to kind of ask about that, because there's a lot more, changes and things like that. But yeah, developers, it just seems from a high level, at least, seem to be very comfortable developing for the PlayStation. And, there's been a few different places, not even my conversations, but just listening to other people within the industry that have said that, the people are going to max out they're going to be able to get, I'm trying to think of the right words, but they're going to be able to get, they're going to be able to reach the potential, I guess, of the PS5 a lot easier. So you can't diminish that either. Like when we look back at the 360 PS3, I don't think we're looking at that big of a gap in learning at this time, because it's not like something that crazy as the cell. But even late in the generation, people, the ease of development's a huge part. And like a developer told me, he's like, why would I want to? If I don't have to go low level access or code to the metal, quote unquote, why would I want to? I could use that time, even if I could get 90% of the way there from, not getting close, then I would rather dedicate that time and resources to other things. So yeah, keep that stuff in mind. Like I really think that over the course, the PlayStation's going to get better too. There's no doubt about it. I mean, in fact, the Unreal's coming out next year with some new features that devs are really excited about, and I think that's what devs like to talk about more than teraflop difference. They like to talk about the new features and things that
developers. Yeah, developers have told me they don't even like talk teraflops. It's not even like a vocabulary. Like that's not. Yeah. I've never heard anybody like really get down into. I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter at all. It just doesn't matter. It's just context. It's not that. It's just not super important. At the end of the day, give me if somebody were to tell me in my own industry, like, hey, there's two different tools. This one has. Once you really, really become a master at these two things, this one is more capable. But this other one is just, we can dive in today and start getting results today. I'm going to choose the one that I can get results today, that more people in the industry understand, that I can reach out and get help for a lot easier, because there's just more, resources out there. Because that's empowering too. It's just not just the theoretical. If I max this thing out and code it to the metal, I'm going to and just squeeze everything I can out of this. Which one's more capable? That may sound great on paper, but at the end of the day, like time is a cost money, first of all, and that's really our biggest. That's our biggest expense, right? Like time is. You think about like any business, it's really your revenue minus your expenses, it equals your income, and it's the same thing in development. It's like it's your the expenses for the time you put into something is going to come off of your bottom line. So that's going to be a huge factor in things. But the exciting thing is like overall that all the people that make the tools and things like that, and a lot of the focus, even with machine learning, is how to streamline this stuff, because it's to get away from low load development so that they can spend more time creating things that, putting the things that are in their head on, putting it out there, getting to some sort of result quicker, that's where the real power is going to come in. And that's why you're seeing small teams, I think, starting to make really, really, interesting looking games that, you would have thought that would have taken a pretty big budget in the past. And so that's going to be exciting for me. That's a great point. We're seeing games that, that we, from smaller studios that in previous generations would, be things that larger studios put out, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that's because the tooling's easier now, right? Things are more streamlined. They have the ability to create these experiences that maybe 10 years ago weren't possible with a smaller team.
Nope.
We see that. I mean, I see that across the board in software development. Like that's I'm not a developer, but I'm my career, like I'm involved in finding those individuals per se.
Yep.
And so I always have those conversations with, with hiring managers. We're using this tool because this tool is going to do this for us. So we need this person to have that level of experience because we're doing this, right?
Yep.
And everything I've seen is how can we make this process easier? How can we streamline things, right?
No, and you make a really, really good point. You talk about your own industry because like anybody who works in any sort of technology that works with any kind of software that keeps evolving probably can relate to like what's going on in the gaming industry. Like stuff that we would have to do a lot of coding for is getting almost to this point of almost like drag and drop. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. It's not exactly that way, but it's becoming more automated. Like the tedious, time consuming things that we used to, spend a lot of time on are becoming a lot more like you basically tell the software what to do, and it's going to do all that coding for you behind the scenes. You don't even have to be a coder now. And even in game development, I've talked to people that you don't have to be a super low level coder to get into game development anymore. And these tools are continuing to evolve more and more. So like, even when you talk about machine learning, like when I think about machine learning, it's I think about it as like automation and like predictive stuff. So you start thinking about applying that not just to the games themselves, but to the actual tools. It's going to make things that maybe developers would have to spend a lot of time, tediously testing and doing themselves is going to start to become more and more automated, which frees them up to do more creative things and the more artistic things. And so that's why you see stuff like I'll give an example. Like the Scent's one of the games I'm looking forward to most next year, and it's a small team. So I was reading their dev interviews, and they were saying at the beginning of last generation, 2013, you could have never imagined none of that would have been possible with their small 11-person team. And now they're able to create something that looks like in 2013, you probably would have had to have much bigger team, much more expensive project. Which probably would not have gotten funded, which is probably why we've seen this big gap between these small indies and these AAA games. So that's why where the middle class went. But now you're going to kind of bring that stuff back because developers are going to be able to start to because they don't have to spend as much time doing some of those things. They're going to be able to start being able to show their creativity. And a small team, like 11-person team, is basically like 2 garage bands, getting together. Yeah, and it's exciting, man. Like I was hearing Bill Stillwell when he was on the Iron Lords podcast. Maybe it was last year or something like that. And he was talking about like kind of like democratization of like development, and like you even look now. Since then, we've had the COVID, and people have learned how to work from home. You're going to probably see where people are going to be able to form development teams across the world, work off of dev kits that are sitting in servers. You're not going to have to buy a building and hire 50 to 100 devs and find investors for that. Like you're going to start to see really, really cool things just come out of just people that are inspired, and they're going to have the ability. And again, like that is like the super exciting thing is the accessibility this gen is not just from a consumer standpoint and exposure. It's going to be there once you start to see the internet improve. But then on the developer side, that's going to be a factor too. And I think, when people keep talking about they keep talking about teraflops and who's got the fastest SSD. And at the end of the day, it's really about empowering the people that create the stuff. And that should be the stuff that people get behind and get excited about. It's not even just the AAA list wars. It's like, start looking at it, because a lot of your best games right now, you don't even know the names of the studios that are making them. There's a lot of people that are entering the industry because it is becoming more accessible. And I think that's like the coolest thing. And that's why I really like to focus on seeing what the indies are doing. Because when you make a super, super expensive games that take 200 people or plus, you're going to be limited. You can't take certain risks in general.
Yeah, I just want to say that, Racer, there's nothing wrong with indies, sir.
No, especially, yeah, indies are going to have a whole different connotation. I think when people think about indies, they think about pixel art games, which I like some of those too.
Well, you look at a game like what's the game by Upsubbo Studios?
Plague Tale.
Plague Tale.
Small team. Yeah,
I mean, that's a small team. In that game, you wouldn't know that game was made by a small team. Like,
No, that
A
was
Plague's Tale is one of the best games I played. When did I play it? Earlier this year, I think. I don't remember. Of course, you know where I played it on. I played it on PC because that's the best place to play video games. And it looked amazing. Mac, like alter settings, everything. Just chef's kiss, right? Steal a line from my good friend Mr. Badbit. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like that's a great example. Like that game, you would
Ninja
never
Theory.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, you think like
And look
think
at
about
Ninja Theory with what's it called?
Hellblade. Yeah,
Hellblade. Yeah. I mean, small studio.
Yeah, that was a small team. It was like what 20 people or something like that.
Something like that,
And that's not even with all the advances they're making now with the tools and now with the CPUs with more power and like now they're going to start again making it a lot easier for developers to start adding in these high level animations. You're seeing like machine learning animations coming up and so now they got the power to kind of run a lot of these other things. It's going to like again results in better tools. And you saw those results. The Sobel made both Flight Sim and Plague Tale. How that studio of that size could do both of those things. So yeah, I think that's going to become more of what you can kind of look for, and it kind of returns the middle class of gaming. It's like maybe they're not going to be not going to be Cyberpunk in terms of scope, but they're going to be. They might be Cyberpunk in terms of quality visuals, right, and animations, and just a smaller scope game, which is going to allow people, it's going to allow a lot more risk to be taken, and that's that's where the power really comes in when creative people can actually get the funding or have the tools to do the stuff that's in their head. That's what's interesting. Whereas I think this last generation, for at least a few years ago, you either saw AAA games, everything was like in one of 5 genres, kind of with the same sort of templates, or you had the really, really, really small teams that, were self-funded, people just kind of passionately making stuff, but obviously you could tell. And I think you're going to start blurring that more, which is going to be fun. I think that's cool.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's going to be fun. And I see something like Plague's Tale, go back to that game again. Like those are nice, like palate cleansers, if you will. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a very positive way, because when you're immersed in a game that's 125 hours, like and I experienced this, like I played Persona 5 and Horizon Zero Dawn back to back. I was burned out.
Yep.
I was like, I don't think I gamed for like 2 weeks.
That's and I feel like the older I get, I still love the game, but yeah, putting so much energy into one thing. Usually when I get done with one of those, I can't do back to back, giant open world, and everybody's different. I get it. Some people only want to play that stuff. I can't do that, man. It's like I could do that once in a while. I'm doing that right now with Yakuza Like a Dragon. That's a long game. It looks like that I've been immersed in. But yeah, after that, I'll just go to a bunch of. I still want the quality to be there, right? Like honestly, if gamers. Let's be honest, we like pretty things and we want the art to show with nice graphics and things like that and animations that kind of bring us into the world. But we don't, the problem is it's like all or nothing, man. It's been like either it's like I heard, Mooch say it on his show. It's like either Mooch and Crap go fishing or, or it's, or you get these like really, really big games. And I think that just getting some of that in between, like just getting some of that variety, and it's like, just give me like a 10-hour game. A 10 hours, really cool story like Hellblade, but maybe even take that up a notch in terms of like the combat and stuff like that. Like just keep evolving that in these like slices where I can experience, a lot of different types of things. And it's not an all or nothing, it's not an all or nothing investment.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'll get the super chat real quick from Gaming Forte, the $2 super chat. Thank you, Forte. Forte, I miss you. Maybe you're at work. If you're not at work, you should jump in. But if you can, I understand. Forte says you should play. It's a great game. OBM. I don't know what game he was referring to. Was that Destiny?
Oh, maybe it was that. Well, actually, I am going to be jumping in Destiny 2 this weekend. So once I get some time, but I don't know if he was talking about anything else. I don't remember what other games we talked about.
Yeah.
You know what? It has to be done. If Forte's talking, without even knowing the rest of the context, just guess Destiny, and you'll probably be right 95% of the time, right?
Yeah,
I still got to go see Forte. He works about 10 to 15 minutes away from me, but I need to wait for those PS5 digitals to come in so I can go trade in my old consoles for one.
yeah. I tell you, you definitely need to go see Forte, man. Like, definitely, I'm sure Forte will take care of you, and provide excellent customer service as he always does to his customers that go to his GameSpot or GameStop. Always get those confused.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely an exciting time, man, just to be a gamer. Like, there's so much stuff coming out. The technology is getting better. You look at what these both consoles, I think, are great consoles.
Mhm.
From a hardware perspective. Now, obviously, the content's going to be the ultimate, judge, jury, and whatever of these consoles, right?
Like always.
Like always. Like that's never going to change. It's funny. I hear people say, "Well, hardware matters most." Like, no, it's actually the software that matters the most. 'Cause that's always going to, say that Nintendo, they'll laugh in your face because they've won NPD for like the 24 straight months now. I think that's like a record on
Running
NPD.
off of a freaking tablet.
Yeah, a tablet, right? Yeah, I mean, come on, really? It's games, it's content. That's why the Switch is killing it. That's why it's killing it.
It'll always be that way, and they realize, there's a lot of times they got to lean into. It's just we talked about it on other BRAP shows, but they're going to lean into whatever competitive advantages and try to minimize certain narratives, and maximize the ones that are benefiting them. But at the end of the day, everybody knows that you're in this business. It does come down to content. You don't, and it's going to be the content wars, especially in the next few years. I don't think people really think about this enough. Like they're still fighting so much on the plastic wars and the plastic sales, and yeah, it's great that there's super high demand. I think that really just shows the potential of the industry, not just consoles, but like the overall passion for gaming right now is higher than it's ever been. But 2-3 years from now, when like 5G and maybe it's 5 years from now, but when 5G, things like Starlink, all that stuff starts to become more mature, you'll get to a point where it's not going to freaking matter. Like PlayStation gamers that are worried about, hey, is Elder Scrolls going to come to my PlayStation? You're going to be able to play it. You're going to basically be able to take your PlayStation controller, pull up an app on your TV, and play it over, whatever internet you have, and it's probably going to be low enough latency by that time that you'll be able to enjoy the game. Obviously, enthusiasts will want the most premium stuff, but for the general population, the accessibility of gaming is the reason why all these giant mega corporations are jumping in, is because they're seeing that. Like if these $1 trillion corporations like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, who was about to get out of gaming, didn't believe that was going to change things, they wouldn't be investing like they are. In all these companies there wouldn't be this massive influx because they're not doing that for console gaming. They're doing it because they know that this high level AAA gaming is going to become accessible throughout the entire world, and you're not really going to be restricted to console. You're just going to, PlayStation gamer who's never bought an Xbox, never going to buy one. A few years from now, we'll be able to take the controller they already own and for $1 get on Game Pass and try out all the games that the Xbox gamers have been waiting for 20 years for. So it's just, that's how it's going to work. So it's like, that's why I keep telling people, it's like, you're getting caught up in like the stuff that doesn't really matter. It's like, okay, does Starfield eventually go to the PS5 or not? It's kind of almost a technicality because it's going to be accessible to all of them anyways. And Phil Spencer's basically, and Satya Nadella, if you listen to him, he doesn't even talk about consoles.
He doesn't. He really doesn't. Yeah,
he doesn't. That's for us enthusiasts, and it's going to continue to exist, just like the Elite controller exists. There's going to be enthusiast products. But the mainstream, what's going to be considered the mainstream in a few years, is going to be just accessing it from whatever the hell device they have. It's going to be like Netflix, anything else like that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have spent they didn't spend $7.5 billion to win the console war. They spent it because the paradigm's changing, and there's a huge opportunity because people beyond the consoles will start being able to play all this stuff. But that's a different topic. So
yeah, well, I was going to say, I do think it's interesting. Like, people think that like Game Pass is the absolute future of the industry, and that streaming is the absolute future of the industry. And I think that there isn't one absolute per se.
No.
I think the industry's so big that there's different paths,
Yep. Yeah.
and I think that Microsoft might go more balls to the wall with the streaming and Game Pass. Although I think Sony, Jim Ryan's saying they have an answer for Game Pass. We'll see what that's like, right?
They're getting in. They're totally getting in.
But look, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if it makes revenue for these companies, they may go to something more a la Stadia or something like that. I do think though streaming isn't. I don't know. I used to believe streaming was going to be the absolute future, and now I'm not so sure because of the clear digital divide that we have, at least in this country, in the U.S.
For now, yeah, no, that's a big piece of it. And I guess we have to see how that shakes out. But again, the $1 trillion corporations who kind of look at the markets and they understand what's going on behind, like when they're making these big decisions, they've done their industry research. They believe not just the ones that are investing in gaming, but outside of gaming. You look at like autonomous cars and things like that. They really believe that that the internet's going to change the world. And yes, right now, what you're talking about, there is a huge divide, but there's a lot of things, and it'd be like another show to kind of talk about internet. But like you even like look at something like Starlink, which is in its beta, and it has like a 20 millisecond latency, and it can be accessed in rural areas that have had shitty Comcast internet for years, super expensive, shitty, terrible internet. And they're already talking about like in its beta form, it's already changing like the way schools and things like that can do things. So the world is going to look a lot different. And so again, people are kind of, they're fighting about stuff. It's funny because we're fighting about stuff and then, games that are going to take 3 to 5 years to make. And, the world's going to look completely different in 5 years. So it's like, kind of fighting these list wars about that kind of shit. When it comes to just plastic is really, it's not that it's irrelevant. It'll continue to exist, but I do think that people kind of lose perspective on how different everything will look probably by the time a lot of these games are made. And yeah, to your point, Enrique, I agree with you. I think the consoles aren't going away. Nintendo Switch isn't going to go away. There's a lot of different places for gaming to exist, and but the streaming is going to widen it a lot, especially once I think some of the new for internet infrastructure is kind of mature.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's going to be a very big compliment to the industry to be able to stream. I don't think it's going to be the end all be all, though. I don't think it's going to. I used to think the consoles were going to disappear. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe they get smaller in scope, but obviously there's still a market for that. I could be wrong. Maybe in 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, it depends on what country you're in too. In some countries, streaming will probably be most of the AAA base, so that's the other thing too. People like a lot of times we focus on like what do things look around me here, but this world, like you go from country to country, everybody's markets is completely different. So when they talk about expanding this too, it's not just the United States. It's really some of these territories that they have zero presence in. They'll be able to have massive presence in, and I think they're already seeing that like in South Korea and stuff like that, the potential there. So, but anyways, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, well, if you look at Japan right now, I mean, Japan mostly they don't game on consoles the way they used to. They primarily game on mobile devices now. So you're right. But the market to market's definitely different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So OBM, look, man, I do want to rant on something real quick. It's non game related.
Okay.
Before we wrap up. Look, I'm not going to sit there and say who should and shouldn't get a vaccine for corona well, I can't say it, I guess, on YouTube, but for the pandemic bug. I'll call it that, right?
Yep.
Pfizer, the FDA has approved this Pfizer vaccine, right? I got to be honest with you though, and again, if you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. I'm not gonna argue with someone who doesn't feel comfortable, But I gotta say that when people start saying things like poison, it raises eyebrows for me, and I bring this up because science was such a big part of my education growing up, right? why do we not trust? And I understand there's some things that have happened in our country's history that might cause certain groups to maybe not trust healthcare or science as much. But at least at its very foundation, the scientific method, we have science, which is probably the closest thing to facts that we have, right? I'm a little maybe I don't know if I should be shocked. Nothing shocks me now in this country after the last election.
Yep.
But I gotta be frank, like, and it's fine if you're not comfortable with, getting a vaccine. I get that. That's not, I have family members that aren't comfortable with it. They don't believe that the science is correct. But I do have to say something, like, there is a scientific method. There is scientific data. But when I see stuff like OBM, like I'm seeing this all over my Facebook feed now. Facebook, by the way, has become an abomination of social media, in my opinion. It's just not.
I won't even go on there anymore. I mean, barely. I'm only there so that people can reach me.
Yeah, me too. Pretty much. But when I see people posting things, don't take this. If they're, no one can force me to do anything. The government wants to force us to do this stuff. Yeah, I'm seeing conspiracy theories out there now. That the U.S. government's going to force us to take vaccines, and that this thing is poison. I'm like, where are you guys getting this information from? Danny just saying we don't trust because there's no peer-reviewed data. There's more open questions about it than answers. Time will tell.
The only thing I'll say to all that stuff, I understand people should always ask questions, but it's the same thing. We see it, like, it doesn't matter if it's gaming, politics, or science. People have a theory, and then somehow it gets confirmed on the they get the confirmation bias. And I would just encourage people, and again, from regardless of where you're at, there's nothing wrong with asking questions and not belonging to somebody else, not jumping from one cult to the next, ask questions. But then at the end of the day, it's just like in anything you do in your life, you take all the information and you have to eventually make a decision. So based on the preponderance of the evidence, otherwise you don't, I think that's where we have to just go, is really basic, take a look at, ask your questions, take the preponderance of the evidence, and you have to eventually go with that stuff. But yeah, I just get more frustrated that just kind of the way social media controls what people believe. It's like, if I'm on this team, I believe all this science and this stuff. And if I'm on this team, I believe all these conspiracy theories. And it doesn't really matter. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's gaming or politics. We see the same damn thing and everything. So hopefully people over time just start to, become more aware and start making their own decisions. Try to at least, ask more questions, find out, like, if somebody's telling them something, where's that information coming from? I think that's fine. But if they do that, I kind of trust that that the science and will win out at the end of the day. But that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, it's just fascinating that with everything I've seen kind of after the election, post-election, and QAnon conspiracies and stuff. And again, I'm not saying that if you don't. To Don, what's up, Don? He says, "Wait, this is not gaming." We just wrapped up the gaming conversation, Don.
I'm sitting here eating now.
Yeah, just an interesting observation that I noticed as my Facebook feed popped up, but just something that I wanted to bring up, because I'm seeing a lot of misinformation out there and just things that kind of like raise eyebrows. Things that are said that aren't based on any kind of scientific data. Which I will always encourage people to read, try to get as much data as possible, make an informed decision. Right?
Yep. That's all. Do it with everything. It's always good to understand, to ask questions. But anyways, yeah, that's all. I wasn't prepared to talk too much about that.
Yeah, I was got through a
I don't
curveball.
have. I'm like. Oh wait. I was in a different mindset right now. I was all excited about the future of gaming, and then you got me brought back to this.
Yeah. Well, real quick, man. Are you going to get back into Destiny then? I heard you say earlier you're going to play Destiny. So did you download the? Well, no, you don't have the Series X, do you?
Oh, I do. I do have.
Okay, you do. Okay, I wasn't sure. All right, OBM, we got to reach out to Kane's fan, and we got to get some Destiny in.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to play Destiny. I got a lot of time to kill before Cyberpunk gets its official release on the Series X. Right now, it's still in beta, and I'm not going to pay them for a beta.
Yeah. By the way, I fired up Dragon Quest 11 last night, real quick. Oh man, the introduction. I had to put the game away. I was like, you know what? I got to turn this off. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Oh yeah. No, I'm actually that's the other one that's on my docket right now. So it's just I gotta decide whether I'm going to do another long game after Yakuza right away. But I might. It's tempting me. It looks all of a sudden the Yakuza game got me into Japanese RPGs, which I have not been into that genre since the Final Fantasy on the OG PlayStation. I loved 7 and then 8 and 9. Eventually by 9 I was like done, and now I'm coming back to it. So yeah, I'm excited about giving Dragon Quest a shot and seeing what the worldwide hype on that IP is, because
also known as Dragon Warrior, but go ahead.
Oh, you know what? I did play Dragon Warrior on the NES, but that was a whole different. That was kind of janky back then.
Yeah. Well, listen to this. Like, so you know the little blue blobs?
That
you see them in the beginning of Dragon Quest 11.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, oh my god! I'm like the blue blob. Yeah. And you have the option of playing the top down like Dragon Warrior was.
Okay.
With the old 8-bit,
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks. I mean, obviously I didn't pick that version, but I gotta say, man, like I got the feels, man. Like that game, I still have the cartridge and box art for Dragon Warrior for the NES. I still have that.
Wow. Yeah, my brother picked that up. He was really excited about it, and I didn't get into that back then. I gave it a little bit of a shot, but I think I wanted. It wasn't super high production values back in the day, even for those days. So I think that's why I wasn't into it. But I was a graphics whore growing up. Nowadays, I like a little bit of everything. They're all good. I think they're all good enough for me to play. So I can't. Yeah, I am really looking forward to that. But I don't want to start another big game before. Actually, Don will lecture me before I finish the big game that I'm playing now.
Yeah.
No, I am ADD gamer, and I will start like 10 different games and never finish any of them. So,
yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I mean, so we got to get back into Destiny 2. It looks great on running on 60 FPS. I mean, I know that because I've experienced the game at higher frames, but for consoles, it is it's just great. It's great that they have this game at 60 FPS right now. You
got some feisty guys in your chat right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, chill out. Like seriously, guys, just chill out. Like it's just.
It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's like I'm old enough that shit doesn't. I've been there. He's hopefully he's just a young person.
Yeah. So. All right, OBM. On that note, man, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this BRAP rant. I want to say, man, it's always a pleasure talking video games with you, man. I've known you a long time. It's funny, man. I go back to meeting, I guess, on a random Xbox Live game or something. We probably met playing a game and shot each other friends requests, and here we are.
I think we coordinated stuff from the GameSpot forums. I think that's how we started off. But it was a lot of Unreal Championship, Ghost Recon before Halo launched. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, me too. A lot of remember the clans, the Xbox Live clans.
Yeah, I never never had a competitive group of people. Usually it was just yeah, but I do remember those.
Yeah,
I might have belonged to one. But
I was in 2. I was part of 2, so I remember those days, man. Playing competitively, that was funny. So, but OBM, man, seriously, man, always a pleasure. You're always welcome. Open door, always welcome back on BRAP. And
Thank you, sir.
yeah, please. We have like over 100 people watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And if you're new, subscribe and hit the bell notification. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat for hanging out with us this afternoon. And OBM, let everyone know they can find you if you want to be found.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit new to the community in terms of putting myself out there, but we did just start a new Halo podcast not long ago called "You Had Me at Halo." So I also am doing some cool things here with the Xbox era team, and we'll be hopefully showing something really cool with Game Pass coming up shortly. Other than that, you can find me on Twitter, which something I, for better or for worse, just jumped into not long ago, and my Twitter handle is OneBadMother at mother_1, and yeah, look me up. And always love to talk about gaming. I am more, obviously, as we talked about, I am more Xbox leaning. I've been on that platform for a while, but I really just get excited about all things gaming. There's a lot to be excited about across.
It's about you got to get a PC, man. It's time for a PC build. OBM.
I got the damn. Well, okay. I already. It wasn't the super highest end one. I got a gaming laptop. I got it for the strategy games.
Yeah, RTX.
Yeah, it was just like a 1660 Ti i7, whatever. So it was like that was a year and a half ago or so. But
time. It's time.
I know, the thing is though, I just go back to console gaming. It's just I don't know. I can't explain it. It's like I just like the feel of it. I don't even know what it is. If it's just a habit. Obviously it's nice when you have a bunch of friends that you've developed over the years, kind of really close, that you can just hop over. And that's a hard part to replicate. Maybe someday when they figure out how to stop you PC gamers from cheating, and crossplay is a thing, and I can use my controller and still play with other controller gamers, maybe I will consider full-time on PC gaming. But until then, it's still, I like to use my controller and play against other people with controllers and play with my friends. So that's where you'll find me for now. But you will see. We'll see what happens next year and the year after.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, man, I get it. Like, people tell me, oh, I want to game on the couch. And I get that. Like, people want to, you sit on the couch, game, it's comfortable, you got your TV. My situation is a little bit different. I have a dedicated gaming room per se. So everything's here. My Series X, PlayStation 5, my Oculus Quest 2, and then my PC. So everything is in the gaming room. So it's all accessible to me. So. But yeah, but if you ever consider it, man, let me know. I mean, I love it. There's some issues. I had to reinstall Windows.
That's never issue number one. Well, and especially being a Game Pass whore, their Windows. That's the biggest weakness right now of Xbox in the future is that damn their store on the PC is still trash, and they do need to clean that up for us Game Pass. Guys and girls. So yeah, I used to be a PC master race right before I came to Xbox. Actually, I was playing on the PC. I left from the PS1 and N64, and I PC game for a while back when there was a giant delta. And like Half-Life, I was playing Half-Life, and everybody was talking about GoldenEye, and I was like, that's not a first-person shooter. So, I know what it's like to be part of the damn master race. But right now, I'm just enjoying the streamlined console experience.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. I get that, man. I mean, there's obviously, my PC experience has been pretty good for the most part, except for having to reinstall Windows, which wasn't too hard. I mean, it was pretty fairly easy to do. Reinstalling the operating system. I did lose a lot of stuff, but whatever. It is what it is. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly aspects of gaming on PC where you have to tweak certain settings and to get games running well. Like Texas Lean says Cyberpunk is best on PC right now. Facts.
Yeah, it's not even close.
But yeah, I mean, get Cyberpunk running at 60 frames. I had to tweak some things. Most of my settings are set at high, but if I wanted, ray tracing, and I have ray tracing lighting set to medium, I have ray tracing reflection on. I don't have ray tracing shadows on, because if I do that, it's going to dip to like 45, to 35 frames a second, and I want 60. I want 60 FPS.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with the optimization in a few months or whenever that stuff comes out. And when it does, then I'll try it out.
Yeah.
But right now, it's like I don't even really consider the. Again, it feels like the console owners got especially the next gen console owners. We got the early access beta. That's what we got going on. So, I'll wait. I'll wait a little bit longer. I'm okay. It's not like when I was younger when I couldn't wait to play things. I can wait to play things. There's so many good things out there now. I'll play your shit when it's ready.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man, absolutely. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are doing that too. I've seen some people say they're going to wait until the patches come. That's probably the best way to experience Cyberpunk. I wouldn't do it right now on consoles. I'd say if you have a Series X, PlayStation 5, wait till the next gen patches come. If you have those base PS4s and Xbox Ones, I don't know what to tell you. I just don't know. That would be probably a hard pass for me. I'd be like, you know what? I'll wait.
Yeah.
So
yep, definitely.
All right, everyone. Please again hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you know when we go live. Appreciate as always the support in the community. Appreciate everyone in the live chat. Thank you all for hanging out with myself and one bad mother. And on that note, we will catch you all later. I'll be back again on BRAP Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time again for our regular edition of Basement Radio Arcade podcast. So on that note, everyone, enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have some fun. Have a great time gaming, I should say. And we'll see you next time. I'm out. I should say we're out. Peace.
Out. All right. Take it easy.